welcome to Living Japan, the channel which talks about visiting, moving and living abroad in Japan. I'm Max, and I'm going to talk a bit about my experience moving to Japan, some of the things I've learned and some of the things I wish I knew before I got here. Now last week we did a video talking about getting ready, basically listing everything you have to do and how to prioritise it. In this video we're going to be talking about learning Japanese, which was at the top of that list. So it's probably no surprise to you that learning the language of the country that you're going to live in is pretty important. Now, coming here to Japan, if you speak the language very well, it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for you. You're going to be able to work in nicer environments, you're going to be able to go out to nightclubs or cafes or restaurants with confidence, regardless of whether they're tourist bars or restaurants or cafes or local bars, restaurants and cafes. You're also going to be able to make friends, and you're also going to be able to educate yourself if you want to go to university or to college or do any courses over here. So, where to get started learning Japanese? I think that probably the best place to start is actually the alphabet. So in Japanese we have 3 alphabets. We have hiragana, katakana and kanji. Now, I'm not going to talk about kanji too much right now. The first two, hiragana and katakana, are very similar. They both have 71 different written characters. They have many different sounds, and they're mostly used to express the majority of the words that we have. Hiragana is focused just on Japanese words, and katakana is focused just on foreign or Western words. Now, learning both of these alphabets will take you around about 3 months, I think, to a pretty good proficiency. For myself, I split up the whole alphabet to the 5 sounding characters. So hiragana and katakana all start with a, I, u, e, o. And then they add in different consonant sounds. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Sa, shi, su, se, so. And so I basically split it up into those 5 sounds and learned a different one every 2 days. I went around repeating it and writing it down. The writing it down was really handy because it allowed me to recognise the characters quite well with their sounds, but it also got me used to writing hiragana and katakana. After 3 months I was fairly proficient in hiragana and pretty good in katakana as well. But this brings us to the third alphabet, kanji. This one is a little bit more difficult. In fact, most people learning Japanese find this to be the hardest of the 3. Kanji has 50,000 different characters. Yeah, it's a big alphabet. Now, thankfully we don't need to learn all 50,000 characters. Most people get by in Japan with only 2,000 or 3,000, and that's the average Japanese person. However, it's also said that if you're very well educated here in Japan or of higher standing, you probably use around 5,000 of the kanji. So yeah, learning kanji is kind of a longer process. So you might already be looking and saying, wow, how long is it going to take me to learn Japanese with 50,000 kanji and 71 letters and hiragana and katakana? Well, most people can pick up some basic Japanese phrases in around about a month or 2. If you want to speak in a kind of get by in Japan level, it usually takes around about 2 or 3 years. And if you want to be kind of native in Japanese, well, I have friends that have lived here for around 30 years and they still haven't got it. So it takes a long time to become native in the language. So after you've got hiragana, katakana and kanji, you probably want to get stuck in learning the actual language. Now, there's many ways to do this. In fact, I find today is probably the best time ever to go out and learn languages. Not just today, but as in nowadays. We have the internet, and with it comes a huge abundance of information. You can find, just by typing in Japanese language study, or study Japanese, or learn Japanese, You will find so many hits teaching you the fastest, the quickest, the best, the most professional way of learning Japanese. So, which one is the best? Well, I don't know. But in my experience, I used a series of different methods and I found them to be very useful. So one of the first things that was advised to me was to watch anime. Now, if you're somebody who enjoys watching anime or reading manga, the animated comics or the drawn comics of Japanese style, then yeah, reading these things, you have a natural connection and an enjoyment, and it makes it a bit easy to get into the language. So I would watch anime in English with Japanese subtitles, and that got quite handy for learning some words, but to be honest, it didn't work that well for me. The best thing that worked for me was actually jumping on YouTube, and I've put below a few of the videos that really helped me get started. I started off just looking at some YouTube videos of some basic phrases. Now, this might sound really silly, but actually these are the phrases that I use almost every day, and I learned them first and quickly. Things like Ohayo, Konnichiwa, Sayonara, Toire wa doku desu ka? Things like that. They're really handy phrases that you use on a regular basis. And learning them just from a random video of like 10 minutes each and picking up some of these phrases and then picking up another phrase was just really handy at giving me basic confidence of getting by on day-to-day life. And I find it even helpful today if I'm out and I'm really tired, or maybe I've been drinking and someone comes up and talks to me and blindsides me, I'm not ready for the Japanese, I've always got that stuff stuck in the back of my head. I'm always able to go, ja, chotto matte kudasai, and then talk away to them. Really, really helpful to have that language there. But don't get lost in the idea that watching YouTube videos is going to teach you Japanese. This doesn't really always work. It teaches you the phrases, which are really handy, and it's good for practicing you saying and listening to what's being said. But I did find that it didn't really go into detail about the grammar, or really that far with vocabulary. So I needed a lot more words, especially things like verbs, and I just needed to know how to put them together. Japanese grammar is very difficult if you're starting from English. The best example, the most famous example of Japanese grammar is if you watch Star Wars. You might know the character Yoda. Well, his grammar is Japanese. It's that structure. It's completely the wrong way around for us. Now, for learning grammar, I started turning to some books, and not really knowing where to start, I just searched learning Japanese courses, and many really expensive courses popped up. Most of them didn't really have that many good reviews, but one book kept popping up time and time again with really great views, and that was Japanese for Busy People. So I looked into this book and I managed to get a cheap copy off Amazon. I've got to say that this was a really handy, all-round good book for learning Japanese for me. Generally speaking, it had some nice, easy phrases to pick up. So if you're just visiting Japan and you want to know, hi, how much is this? Where's the bathroom? That's a nice cat. Things like that, then it's got these phrases inside. But also at the back, if you want to dive a little bit deeper, it has an appendix which goes into a lot of detail about the grammar and the use of the different, we call them particles in Japanese, that separate the different parts of the sentence. So it actually came with a lot of information to get you to a good level of speaking Japanese. Now, the second book that I use quite a lot is actually Remembering the Kanji. And I learned this because of a YouTube channel called Abroad in Japan. It's a very famous YouTube channel talking about living abroad in Japan if you're English. Now on this, Chris was talking about this great book, Remembering the Kanji. And I bought it on a whim thinking, yeah, one day I will learn the kanji. And I found it really useful. It splits up the kanji into its different grades. The kanji grades are basically what you learn at school. Grade 1 first, grade 2 second, grade 3 third, so on, so on, so on. But it breaks them up into their images, so you actually remember what they look like, which is really handy for understanding the meanings and what they look like, especially considering kanji on their own can have different meanings if they are next to different kanji. It's very confusing, especially for me. So these are the two main books that I used for getting a grip of Japanese. But there was also one other thing that I used, and this was an app called Duolingo. Now you might have heard of this. It is quite a famous app for learning languages. The app itself serves, I think, lessons in 22 different languages. It's really handy for giving you a basic level of most languages. Now I started with this because I was quite busy in London and I wasn't always sitting in my house with the time to open up my books and talk out loud. I picked up the app and it's free, so that's a pretty big bonus, and especially if you haven't tried it before, it kind of makes it worth checking out. Basically, the structure of the app is it splits up the whole thing into a series of lessons, and each lesson teaches you an area of vocab, things like "Hi, how are you?" or "I'm going to the shops," "I'm going to the bank," or "Is that your sister?" or "Is that your brother?" Things like that. Then each lesson is split up into smaller games. Games where it might write down different characters and you connect the sounds of the characters in English to those characters. Or it maybe gives you a sentence in English and a selection of Japanese words and you put them in order. Or sometimes it gives you the Japanese sentence and you write it out in English. It also sometimes just gives you a sentence that you listen to and then you have to write the words in English. So I find this really helpful. It not only gets you good at listening and understanding, recognizing the characters, the words and the kanji, but it also has really helped me with the grammar, understanding the particles and the structure of the different words. Okay, vocab is slightly limited and I'm probably not going to be able to use this app right the way up until, I don't know, the next couple of years, but it's left me at a good point to be able to walk around and talk to some people in Japan and understand roughly what people are saying to me. So I definitely recommend checking out Duolingo just because of the fact it's free and it's really helped me out over the 2-3 years that I've been using it. So, one other thing that I think is really important to talk about when you're learning a language is repetition. You've got to keep going back to the language. Obviously most people know this, but I myself was super shocked when I'd been studying for almost like a year and a half, really hard. I got very busy around about the time that I was moving over to Japan and working and packing everything up, and I took a small break for maybe around a month. When I went back, I was so shocked at how much I had forgotten. And not even completely forgotten. I see the vocab and I'm like, I remember that word again. But just the fact that I couldn't read the sentence, I couldn't understand the sentences being said to me. And I think this is a really important part, especially if you're moving from English to Japanese. The two languages are so different that if you take a big break in the middle, you really are going to struggle to kind of catch back up. So just keep up that repetition, whether it's just doing 5 minutes a day, or going through the alphabet, or listening to some phrases, or even just playing some Japanese games or watching anime with Japanese subtitles. Any of these things just to keep you up to date, little bit by little bit. So that's all I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you found something useful. If you did, please give me a shout in the comments below. Let me know what you like, let me know what you want more of. If you like the channel and you want to see some more, hit subscribe, hit the like button. Your support is really appreciated. Next week I'm going to be talking about finding a job in Japan. One of the more, I guess, interesting parts of moving here to Japan. So have a lovely rest of the day and peace out.